Coming up, the NTSB takes a shot at Part 91 paying passenger operations.
Building a better future, one airplane at a time.
And the attraction of a grass runway. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haines and Alyssa Cobb.
First day of spring last weekend, and in some parts of the country, including at Frederick, it was a couple of beautiful spring days, perfect for getting the airplane out of the hangar and rubbing off some of the rust.
And perfect weather for President Biden to enjoy a weekend at Camp David. President Trump didn't go to the mountain retreat outside Frederick very often, so possibly some pilots had forgotten what happens when the president is there. Yep, P-40. The prohibited area around Camp David expands considerably, and yes, a few pilots this weekend got an unexpected up-close and personal look at an armed aircraft. Fighters are orbiting above Camp David every time the president is there. Trust me, I know this because they fly right over my house, so they can get to you pretty darn quick. Fortunately, it was only a few aircraft that were intercepted, and all of the incursions were likely inadvertent. But that brings up an important point. Many of us have been away from flying for a while, whether it was due to COVID-19 or the weather. So some of us may have gotten a little lax about checking NOTAMs, particularly in the eagerness to get back in the air. So a reminder, everywhere the president or vice president goes, there's a VIP TFR. And it appears that President Biden and Vice President Harris may be traveling to a lot of different areas around the country. In the case of the president, it's a 10 nautical mile no-fly inner ring around his location and a larger 30-mile outer ring where you can fly with some limitations. You need to be talking to ATC, on a flight plan, have a discrete transponder code, and flying directly to or from an airport within the outer ring. Some things like flight training are prohibited in those cases, but it's really not all that difficult to fly in the outer ring if you need to.
And fortunately, AOPA has made it pretty easy for members to not be surprised by a VIP TFR. All you need to do is sign up for our TFR alerts, and we'll email you when there is a TFR within 250 nautical mile radius of your airport. Just go to My Account, then click on the Manage Preferences box, and scroll to the bottom of the page and check the box that says Airspace Alerts. That's it. And iFlight Planner for AOPA shows you graphically where existing and upcoming TFRs are located. Here, you can see the permanent SFRA around Washington, D.C., as well as a VIP TFR that was scheduled for Columbus, Ohio. You can find iFlight Planner right here under the Travel tab on our homepage. It's a free resource for AOPA members. And speaking of iFlight Planner, you can now get more accurate fuel prices in our planning app. Prices are now updated daily. And something else you'll find, information on where you can find airports with MoGas and Swift Fuel's unleaded UL94.
And so if you've been away from flying for a while, whether it's been a few weeks or maybe multiple months, how can you safely get back in the saddle? We talked to our own safety expert, former Thunderbirds commander and head of the AOPA Air Safety Institute, Richard McSpadden, about getting back up to snuff. He said the first thing to recognize is that you are not at the same level you were when you stopped flying. Even an ace like Richard has to work his way back up, even just flying his pristine Super Cub.
When I haven't flown it in a while, I take my time coming back into it. I like to go up and do a series of stalls and slow flight and reacquaint myself with how it flies, and then work your way back up to those more demanding things like the short strips and narrow strips and all that kind of stuff.
Now, if you're feeling really rusty, check out the Air Safety Institute's Return to Flight Guide. But otherwise, consider getting with your favorite CFI for a flight review using one of the Institute's 8 focused flight review guides. There's one that Richard thinks is particularly good for buffing off the rust.
One that's called Positive Aircraft Control. And if you haven't flown in a while, I highly recommend you go take that focused flight review and work all the way through it. Do the ground training that we give you, do the instructor-led discussion that we give you, and then go out and fly that profile. And you'll feel very good after you do that whole thing.
And Richard has a final bit of advice.
We get asked all the time, what's the best thing I can do to be, a safe pilot? And the answer to that is go fly. be as proficient as you possibly can at whatever platform you're flying, right? Spend your money first on avgas.
So that's great advice. Alyssa, what do you do when you've been out of flying for a while?
Well, I go up first. I usually pick a pretty calm day because I have a tailwheel 170,
Right.
And so I go up, I fly around, and do some maneuvers, like Richard was saying, just to get comfortable in the airplane again. And then I usually take a few different times of going up and working on 3-point and wheel landings and stuff before I even take a passenger back up. I want to feel like a hand in a glove in the airplane again.
Yeah. I did pretty well this winter in flying fairly frequently until about 6 weeks ago. And I'm supposed to fly later this week, so I'm going to go up with somebody and kind of knock that rust off, as Richard says.
I was just knocking some rust off Monday morning before work.
Good for you.
Well, a new reason to get out and fly. AOPA and ForeFlight are teaming up this spring for the ForeFlight Flyout program. Each month we will feature fun places to visit in a particular region. The southern region is first, so pilots who check in at the featured airports in April will be able to pick up free, cool ForeFlight gear and be entered for a chance to win a grand prize.
Anything we can do to get more pilots flying more often to more airports, we're winning. That said, it also does help airports themselves. The effort is really designed in order to support and feature local airports all across the country. The success looks like more pilots visiting those airports, featuring the airports, and supporting their local community.
To find the featured destinations, go to the ForeFlight website, download the Flyout custom map layer, and add it to your ForeFlight app. Well, if you're within range of the Chicago area, one place to consider flying is the Poplar Grove Airport, which is also home to the Poplar Grove Vintage Wings and Wheels Museum. AOPA pilot editor Colin Stagnito takes us there.
So we are at Poplar Grove Airport, Charlie 77 in Poplar Grove, Illinois. We're about 20-25 minute flight west of downtown Chicago. But I recommend you come out here because it's a great destination.
A must-see attraction is the Poplar Grove Vintage Wings and Wheels Museum. The museum focuses on aviation transportation from 1903 to 1938 and tells the stories of the people behind the many airplanes and aviation artifacts in its collection.
And the best part of Poplar Grove, in my opinion, are the grass runways. There are two intersecting grass runways, runway 927 and 1836. I'm about to take off from runway 9. Poplar Grove traffic, Cessna 140, departing runway 9, Poplar Grove. Now, the runway at Poplar Grove may not be completely level, but it is very smooth. So aircraft of almost any size can comfortably land on it. I've seen everything from Piper Cubs that the flight school operates out of here to Piper Arrows landing on this grass strip. For an airplane like this Cessna 140, it's just a lot of fun. But that's not the only reason I come out here. The grass runways are great. There is a nice asphalt runway, a nice FBO. They've got some golden retrievers or yellow labs that are so much fun to hang around with. And Poplar Grove is also a flying community. There are a bunch of really nice homes right off the runway. There's a very active EAA chapter that does a pancake breakfast fly-in one Sunday a month during the summer. And the airport as a whole does a major fly-in once a year. Poplar Grove traffic, Cessna 140, left base, 9 Poplar Grove. Poplar Grove also has one of the best engine shops in the entire area, Poplar Grove Aeromotive. Poplar Grove traffic, Cessna 140, final runway 9, Poplar Grove. But the thing that makes Poplar Grove truly special is the community. Between those who own homes there, those that rent hangars, those that train, it's really a great, fun community. And every time you go out there, you see interesting airplanes, you meet interesting people, and you just have a great time. So for many people in the Chicagoland area, any pilots in the Chicagoland area and their family and passengers, Poplar Grove is often at least a once-a-month destination. Well, how about that? There's nothing more fun than rolling it on a grass strip. Super smooth, very forgiving, easier in a crosswind than a asphalt runway or concrete runway. I just love it. I wish my home airport had a grass runway.
Well, Poplar Grove is just one of the flying destinations profiled in the March issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine. If you're looking for more interesting places to fly, you can sign up for the AOPA Travel Pilot newsletter. Every 2 weeks, new destinations to whet your flying appetite. Just click on the News and Media tab on our homepage, then AOPA Newsletters to see Travel Pilot and sign up to get future editions. Well, Tom, Poplar Grove looks like a destination I need to add to my bucket list. And, you know, the Travel Pilot's coming out this Sunday, so pilots can sign up and get all kinds of destinations that they can put on their list.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like your 170 do great out there, but the condition of that runway looks like my Bonanza would do just fine there as well. It's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, when we come back, the NTSB takes on air tours.
And Hands-on STEM. AOPA Live This Week continues in a moment.
The future of USB charging power has arrived. Introducing new ultra-fast charging TA360 USB chargers. Unlock the power of USB Power Delivery (PD) technology. Max power. Multiple configurations. In-seat, cabin, cockpit, and galley USB power. Easy to install. Backed by the best. True Blue Power, the USB experts.
Welcome back. The National Transportation Safety Board says the FAA isn't doing enough to ensure safety for paying customers on air tours, hot air balloons, skydiving, air combat, and historic aircraft. They're called Part 91 Revenue Passenger Carrying Operations, and they fall into somewhat of a loophole that allows commercial operations without the regulatory oversight of Part 135, regulations for charter operators.
I think the public in general would be really surprised at what is required of these operations and not required. When you go to, a parachute jump operation, or you go to a hot air balloon, or you jump on a helicopter, to take a tour, or any of these operations, you're assuming those operations are safe, that there's adequate oversight, that they have to meet just as strict standards as other passenger operations. And in fact, they are not.
The NTSB looked at 8 accidents, including the B-17 crash in Connecticut. Out of that came 6 recommendations to FAA, including new national safety standards or regulations for revenue passenger carrying flights, a database of all such operations, the requirement for a safety management system, and requiring air tour operators to comply with Part 135 or similar regulations.
When people step on board an aircraft as paying passengers, they have the right to trust that the flight will be operated as safely as possible. The FAA must do everything in its power to ensure the safety of every revenue passenger in every revenue passenger carrying operation, regardless of the operating rules.
You sometimes hear us call the aviation organizations the alphabets. There's AOPA, EAA, NBAA, EAA, HAI, AAAE. We could go on and on. Thankfully, we won't. Now there's yet another addition to the alphabets, AAMA, the Advanced Air Mobility Association. 2 aviation business executives have created the association to promote electric aircraft. They plan to organize a symposium on electric aircraft developments and operations next year in Silicon Valley. Meanwhile, another alphabet, GAMA, that's the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, already has an electric propulsion and innovation group, and at least 3 of the leading eVTOL manufacturers are members of GAMA.
He was once the GAMA board chairman, but he's better known to most of us as Piper's CEO. Simon Caldicott took the reins of what was then a troubled company in 2011 after having first come on board to lead the development of the Piper jet. Now he's announced that he will retire on April 2nd. During his decade of leadership, he had a profound effect on the historic company and the industry.
Putting his steady hand, I think, on the helm of Piper, he brought it back out of the depths of the recession, made some smart business decisions. One of the lifebloods for manufacturing is to innovate and to bring new products to market. And so obviously he did that on both the piston and the turbine side. So I think it's just all of his whole career of expertise within the industry brought to bear when he took over the helm of Piper, and the proof is in the pudding.
Unlike some other industry players, Caudicott did not see jets as the future for Piper.
From a business point of view, though, my philosophy was it's great producing big airplanes, which Piper was starting to go down that same path with the jet program, with thinking we get into the jet market, we'll make more money on a jet than we will on small planes. But I took the opposite view with the PA-28s. I went for the volume, small margins, but volume.
And he foresaw what would become a pent-up demand for training aircraft after the end of the recession.
We come out of that, there's still going to be a big demand for more new pilots. And most of these flight schools don't have enough equipment. And certainly the smaller and older flight schools have aging equipment, which are not glass cockpits. They need new equipment. So I really believe Piper's well positioned to meet that demand going forward. And of course, the ultimate thing we did on the PA-28 was to introduce the latest model, the Piper Pilot 100 and 100i last year, which is a much lower cost version of the PA-28. And that will help a lot of these flight schools be able to provide quality training.
And you can see more of my interview with Simon Caudicott in an upcoming Pilot Lounge on our YouTube channel. So, Alyssa, Simon's one of the good guys. He's not going to be gone forever. He's going to play some golf, I think, but he's going to be back, I think, consulting for somebody because he's just got too much talent, and the industry needs guys like Simon.
That's right. The industry definitely needs people like him.
Yep. He's a big asset.
Well, if you or someone you know is interested in a career in aircraft avionics or maintenance, the Aircraft Electronics Association has a number of scholarships available, but you'll have to act fast. The application deadline is April 1st, and that's no joke. Several of the scholarships are worth more than $35,000 to attend Spartan College of Aeronautics and Technology. Many others will give you financial assistance to attend any accredited school with an avionics or aircraft maintenance program. The application link is there on your screen. Well, the kids are all right. Better than all right, even. We first told you several years ago about Tango Flight. It's a program that started in Georgetown, Texas. High school students building an RV-12 as part of a STEM curriculum during the school day. It's expanded across the country, and many of the RVs are flying. Now the program is looking to expand even more. AOPA Live's Paul Harrop has this update.
Have you heard you speaking? Yes. Do you have your sound levels?
Should I mention NASA?
Yes, you should.
Okay.
As much as possible.
I got to intern with NASA this summer. As a STEM Enhancements and Earth Sciences intern, one of the biggest factors in my acceptance was actually Tango Flight and the fact that I had experience that is so different from what other high schools are experiencing.
And that's just one success story out of many you'll find in Tango Flight classrooms.
We've expanded literally from coast to coast. We've got programs all the way up in Manchester, New Hampshire, then all the way out west in Yuba City, California, and quite a few spots in between.
And that growth is in part because of some fine-tuning Tango Flight has done with their program, eliminating the costs to school districts by making sure its contract triggers Perkins grant money from the feds.
Perkins provides loans for all kinds of, provides grants to school districts for all types of CTE programs, career and technical education programs. And this is one of them. And because we work so carefully with the Perkins wording, we can ensure now that when we say something, when we say this, this, and this, and we have these paragraphs within the contract, they can pull those paragraphs out. They can apply for that grant money. And that way the local taxpayers aren't even paying the bill for the programmatic fees for the year.
Schools only having to put up a deposit for the program. Tango Flight also takes away the liability for a school district, with the nonprofit retaining ownership of the airplane from start to finish. And for the students, the class forms potentially unexpected partnerships.
It's one of the only classrooms in America today where you'll find a kid who's a calculus BC wanting to be an aerospace engineer sitting in a class with a kid from auto tech who's working in the mechanic world, and they're working together on the team building an airplane.
The bright young minds of tomorrow's leaders building an airplane from start to finish that will then be sold to have the next class start anew. Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Well, each student that works on the airplane has a chance to fly in it after it's done. Tango Flight connects local mentors with schools in their area to help advise students and teachers as they build the airplane. The volunteers get to share their expertise and help students succeed. Tango Flight hopes to expand to 40 schools across the country. Learn more there on the website.
AOPA's podcast Hangar Talk is closing in on 1 million downloads. In fact, we have an internal poll going, trying to guess when it will actually happen. And the cast is hosted by David Toulis and Ian Twombly and tackles a range of issues related to flying and aircraft ownership. Next week's edition tackles something serious: diversity and gender bias in aviation. Captain Jenny Beatty is a veteran wide-body captain for a major airline. She shares results of a study on the issue as well as examples from her accomplished career.
We have to examine why are women and also people of color not learning to fly, becoming licensed pilots, and progressing into professional pilot careers at the same rate or at greater numbers. And still, it is a field dominated by men and by white men. And one of the issues that I think has not been adequately studied and addressed is bias, harassment, and discrimination.
The episode of Hangar Talk will publish on March 29th. Look for it wherever you find your podcasts or on our websites. GA airports and especially flight schools seem really busy lately if you're out and about. And a new Redbird survey confirms what we're seeing. The flight training industry is healthy and trending upward. The data was just released in the Redbird State of Flight Training Report. Redbird gathered the data early this year from flight schools, instructors, students, and other pilots. The flight training groups surveyed say they are planning more airplane purchases, new simulators, and more CFIs than last year. The survey takes an in-depth look at the flight training industry as a whole. You can find the full report on the Redbird website.
Textron Aviation has put out the call for all owners of the company's various turbine aircraft to volunteer for a special event. Textron is asking for help to transport more than 4,000 athletes and coaches to the Special Olympics in Orlando, Florida next year. This will be the 8th time that Textron will conduct a Special Olympics airlift. Volunteer aircraft will be needed in all states. You can find out more on Textron's airlift page.
And finally, it's the beginning of the end for the jumbos. Earlier this year, Boeing said the last 747 would roll out of Seattle next year. And last week, the last Airbus A380 flew away from the Toulouse factory in southern France. It'll be configured to fly the line for Emirates. The A380 is the world's largest airliner, bigger than even the 747. Airports had to widen taxiways and build special jetways to handle the monster. The double-decker was a nice ride for passengers. Although it could handle up to 853 folks, most airlines configured it for a little more than 500. But Airbus spent $25 billion developing the aircraft and sold only 251. So, of course, they lost money on that project. So, Alyssa, I don't know whether you ever had the chance to fly in one. I've flown in one several times, and I got to say, it really is a nice ride. It's amazing that something that big can get off the ground.
Yeah, I love, I haven't flown in them, but taxiing by on other jets and seeing them just giantly, sitting there, and hope to one day fly on an A380.
Yeah, they'll still be out there for a long time to come, though. You'll have a chance.
Yeah.
That's our show for this week. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
And we hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of AOPA Live This Week.
My name is Terry Carbonell. I live in the Florida Keys on a private airstrip called Tavernero. What I fly is a 182 RG. Wild Mama is her name, 614 Whiskey Mike. You know, SiriusXM is just the best product out there. I fly in the mountains a lot, and ADS-B is a line of sight. You can't get ADS-B, you have big gaps in the mountains, and that's, gosh, when would you want to have good weather is in the mountains. I like to fly low. I've flown across the United States at 1,000 feet AGL because it's all about scenery. You can't always get ADS-B when you're at 1,000 feet, but I always have SiriusXM weather and radio. SiriusXM radio is on 24/7 when I'm in the plane. SiriusXM weather just keeps you out of trouble. It's certainly avoiding bad memories. It's nothing like having reliable weather service in the cockpit.